Hello and welcome to the Voice of Iron, and on this session, I'll be reading and ranting about the Trebuchet medium Battlemech. First, I'll be going over the canon information that we know about the mech and its variants on SARNA, and then I'll be giving my personal thoughts and experiences with this mech. Description: the Trebuchet, also jovially referred to as the Trench Bucket, is a mainline medium-weight battlemech considered to be a fine blend of long and short-range fire support for a unit of its size. Unlike many other pre-clan mechs, the Trebuchet was designed from the beginning to work as part of a lance instead of functioning as a standalone model. The TBT-5N features respectable firepower, 10 heat sinks, 7.5 tons of armor, and a top speed of 86.4 kilometers per hour for good mobility. The main drawback of the design is its endurance. Since it was never meant to operate far from supply lines, the Trebuchet has a limited amount of munitions for its missile launchers, and once these ammunition bins have run dry, the mech must defend itself with only its laser weapons, where it is often outgunned compared to other mechs when fighting independently at close range. The Trebuchet first walked off of assembly lines in 2780 for the SLDF in the final years of the Star League, between the liberation of Terra from Stefan Amaris and Alexander Kerensky's departure. With the onset of the Succession Wars, the Trebuchet would become an almost exclusive staple of the Free Worlds League, since its manufacturing site on Stewart fell within their territory. However, the original TBT-3C models proved to be too difficult to repair and produce with the disappearance of advanced technology, and in 2799, Korean Enterprises went back to the drawing board to create the TBT-5N using less advanced technology. The Free Worlds League military often partnered the Trebuchet with the Archer, while lances consisting of an Archer, 2 Trebuchets, and a Centurion became a common configuration used for siege operations by the Regulan Hussars. However, the design also found its way into the hands of the other great houses, and served with distinction during the Succession Wars in nearly every major operation, with a number of variants created to fulfill various needs. The technological renaissance, which swept through the inner sphere during the 3030s, allowed first Kaliyama and then Irian corporations to begin producing the Trebuchet as well, culminating in upgraded designs debuting several years prior to the clan invasion. As late as 3071, advanced Trebuchet variants would continue to be produced, and found themselves used by new actors on the galactic stage, most notoriously the Word of Blake. Weapons and equipment. The primary weapons on the Trebuchet TBT-5N are a pair of Zeus LRM-15 launchers in its right torso and left arm. 1 ton of ammo per launcher allows it to soften up an opponent, though not truly cripple them at ranges where they cannot return fire. Backing these up for close-range work is a trio of Magna Mark II medium lasers, 2 in its right arm and 1 in its left, which provide the Trebuchet with firepower when the LRM ammunition has been depleted. These also discourage lighter mechs from attempting to intercept it, and the 10 heatsinks allow the mech to fire these continuously while traveling at a cruising speed of 54 km per hour. The Trebuchet is also proficient as a brawler, though its physical blows lack the same weight as heavier mechs. Variants. The TBT-3C was the original Trebuchet as produced for the SLDF. It carried 2 Artemis IV equipped LRM-15s with case, 4 medium lasers, double heat sinks, an endosteel chassis, and a 300 rated extra light fusion engine. However, the attrition of the First Succession War forced Korean Enterprises into redesigning the mech without advanced technology to keep the production lines running. The TBT-5J variant of the Trebuchet is a trade-off that sacrifices firepower for mobility. One of the 2 LRM-15 launchers have been removed and replaced with 5 jump jets, giving the Trebuchet a jumping distance of 150 meters. Additionally, the armor has been increased by half a ton, and 5 heat sinks have been added to the design. It was first produced by the Free Worlds League in 2850 for their mobile regiments and used to surprising effect in their debut against the Capellan Confederation's Chesterton Reserves. The TBT-5S variant of the Trebuchet modifies the design from a long-range support mech to a close combat machine. The LRM launchers have been completely replaced with 2 Thunderstroke SRM-6 launchers and an additional 8 heat sinks, while retaining 3 medium lasers. The Free Worlds League's tremendous success with pairing 5S models with 5Ns in the late 3030s would cause their military planners to consider expanding this concept to other units. The TBT-7K Trebuchet is a radical departure from the 5N model. A prototype used by the Draconis Combine to test whether direct fire support was a viable alternative to indirect fire support. Its entire weapons loadout was replaced with a PPC and an autocannon 5 as its primary weapons, with an SRM-2 for close fire support. Whether the design proved successful or not was lost in the chaos of the 3030s, as the proliferation of new advanced technology caused radical shakeups in the Combine's design bureaus. The TBT-7M. Upgraded with Starleague technology, the 7M variant is built with an endo-steel chassis and uses a 250 Magna XL engine, giving it the same performance but allowing the design to mount 10 double heatsinks and 5 Rawlings 50 jump jets for a jumping distance of 150 meters. It also allows for the Trebuchet's LRM-15 ammo to be protected by case, and for an Octagon Missile Magnet Narc missile beacon with 2 tons of ammo, improving not only the Trebuchet's accuracy, but allowing it to share targeting information with other similarly equipped mechs. The TBT-8B. Kaliyama Weapons Industries began production on this variant in 3071 in an attempt to combine the best features of previous models, using the XL engine from the extinct 3C and jump jets from the 5J. The LRMs are replaced with 4 MML-5s, 2 mounted in the left arm and right torso, supplemented by 4 ER medium lasers on the right arm. 13 double heat sinks keep the mech relatively cool, though some heat management is required. It also uses an endo-steel chassis. The TBT-9K variant of the Trebuchet is a field refit of the 7M with a distinctive Kurita feel to it. Built on an endo-steel chassis and powered by an XL engine, the 9K replaced the LRMs for 2 MRM-20 launchers with 3 tons of ammo total. The medium lasers in the right arm are replaced with 2 medium pulse lasers, while the left arm mounted medium laser is kept, and a C3 slave unit in the left torso allows it to share targeting telemetry with other units. The jump jets are also kept, giving it a jumping distance of 150 meters. The TBT-9N. Tvastar Enterprises produced this model for the Principality of Regulus as a lower-cost derivative of the TBT-9R. It uses an XL engine and XL gyro to save weight. The smaller engine reduces top speed to 97 km per hour. It carries a trio of medium variable speed pulse lasers for close-in work, but had to reduce the clan-spec LRM-15 launchers to 2 instead of 3. 3 tons of ammunition is stored in a Case 2 protected bay. The TBT-9R. This trebuchet was introduced in the Dark Age era. It uses an XXL fusion engine for power, and an endo-steel skeleton is protected by light ferrofibrous armor. The engine allows the 9R to reach speeds of 110 km per hour, but it also features a supercharger to allow it to briefly hit 140 km per hour. It carries 2 medium X-pulse lasers and 3 clan-built LRM-15s to allow it to engage an opponent with missile fire at any range. The TBT-XK7. This variant of the trebuchet was created by Vandenberg Mechanized Industries. It uses 10 double heatsinks and an XL engine for power. Several experimental systems have been added. A chain whip allows the mech to pin units closer to the trebuchet. To capitalize on this, the traditional weapons have been replaced with a pair of Streak SRM-6 launchers, an ER medium laser, ER flamer, and a medium pulse laser. For additional protection, this trebuchet carries modular armor on the front of each torso and a small shield on the left arm. Triple strength Myanmar maximizes the physical damage it can cause and pins heavy and assault mechs in place with the chain whip. And finally, the TBT K7R. This variant is a factory refit performed by Kaliyama Weapons Industries, based on a custom trebuchet found in the periphery. It removes all the standard weaponry, the engine, and the skeleton, replacing them with a light engine, endo-steel skeleton, and a new weapons array. Intended for short-range combat, the TBT K7R carries a pair of ER medium lasers, a pair of ER flamers, a Streak SRM-6, and a chain whip. What makes it most deadly, however, is the Battlemech taser in the left arm. With this weapon, the trebuchet can capture an enemy mech. The trebuchet also carries triple strength Myanmar, allowing it to pin mechs as heavy as an Atlas. 10.5 tons of armor and a 150 meter jump range protect the mech. Now, the trebuchet, as it stands, has the following design quirks. It is both easy to maintain, and it has a fast reload for its torso weapons. And now, personal notes. The trebuchet is a mech that I've become quite familiar with recently, taking out the classic TBT-5N in MechWarrior 5 and giving it a spin. My thoughts on it are mixed, to say the least. I'm going to start first and foremost with the positives of this particular mech. On the plus side, it has heavy firepower for its size. Think about something like, say, a Centurion, where you've got your AC 10, that's about 10 damage a pop, you've got your Lerm 10, that's 10 damage a pop, and you've got your medium lasers, that's 5 damage each, 2 of those, so grand total 30 damage per pop. That's on the table, and that's of course in the video game base. Now, the trebuchet can deal 30 damage with its missiles alone at long range, and then up close and personal, an additional 15 with just the medium lasers. That's pretty good. Heavy firepower for something its size. You're actually starting to approach, believe it or not, Hunchback territory. I mean, not nearly as concentrated as a single AC-20 blast, but that's still a good spread of firepower. Another positive is that it's a dedicated support mech. I like that. It's not something that you actually see that often. Sure, everything has a dedicated role, or at the very least something that it excels in role-wise, but you don't often see a mech that's dedicated to a singular purpose this, shall we say, early on. The Centurion is a fantastic multi-role mech. The Hunchback, while a brawler, can still be configured for nearly anything, and all sorts of other mechs in their category seem to be one-man armies, as it were, especially one of my more recent favorites, the Thunderbolt. Each mech it feels like it's meant to be a standalone device on the battlefield that can work together with certain specialties, whereas the trebuchet explicitly feels like it is designed to support a bigger team, which you might think I'd count as a downside, but I actually consider it a plus, because it means that you are going to be more in sync with your lance, and in a lot of cases, I've used it as a better command mech because of that. I have to stay in the back line and provide supporting fire for, medium lances, and in that, I end up being able to coordinate who they attack and when better. I personally find that to be quite positive. Also, it's very mobile. I'm not gonna lie, at first when I looked at this design, I was like, why does it have a top speed of 86? I'm supposed to stay in the back line. And then, at one point in an arena match, I was being chased down by a crab. A crab was coming at me, and I started walking backwards. At least I think it was a crab. Regardless, sure, it was gaining on me, but I realized my reverse walking speed was still about as fast as an Atlas at full run, which allowed me to keep my distance long enough to allow my Lerms to do damage and ease him in while my medium lasers eventually came into range. So the speed, actually quite useful. However, despite all these positives, I did mention that my overall thoughts on the mech were mixed. And that is primarily for two reasons. First and foremost, as the SARNA article itself mentioned, it has low ammunition. So yeah, you can unleash absolute havoc on your enemies. 30 damage per turn, optimally speaking on the tabletop. But, in the video games, that's 15 missiles per shot per launcher, like every few seconds. And then it just stops. You've got about 2 minutes of fire with this thing continuously, and then it's done. And that usually is not long enough to last for full deployment. Like on defense missions especially, this lasts maybe halfway through the mission if you're careful and line up all your shots. If you're holding down the trigger to attack oncoming enemies, you're going to run out of ammo almost immediately. And then at that point, you're just a worse laser boat. So that's one downside. The other one, and I didn't see this mentioned in the article, probably because it was exclusively thinking about the tabletop, but at least in the video games, this thing has terrible heat management. 10 heat sinks for twin lerms, not even counting the medium lasers and running at top speed. This thing heats up fast. I can do continuous fire on a big mech in the distance, but 3 to 5 volleys, and this thing starts shutting down. It wants to overheat very badly. I ended up making a custom variant in order to try and circumvent this, using conventional parts. I stripped one of the medium lasers and 1 ton of armor in order to give it 2 additional heat sinks. It helped, but even then, 6, 7, 8 shots in a row from the lerms, and this is alternating fire lerms, mind you, not all launch at the same time to blast my heat sinks, and it still wants to overheat repeatedly. Again, that's not even with moving or firing the medium lasers. If you try to alpha strike with this thing, you're going to cook yourself. And I don't necessarily think that that's a design flaw, because again, this is meant more as a support mech in the backline or to walk just behind your brawlers to provide those additional medium lasers. Or maybe I'm just using it in a way that Korean enterprises wouldn't approve of. But at the end of the day, it overheats very quickly, and it doesn't have that much ammunition and staying power. So like I said, I'm mixed. I love how much firepower it can bring for just being a 50-ton mech. I mean, this thing quite literally, with the exception of 1 medium laser missing, has the exact same firepower as a catapult at 15 fewer tons. But to the same degree, it also has its downsides of not being able to stay in the fight nearly as long as a catapult in a lot of cases. It depends on which variant of the catapult and all that kind of stuff. And unlike the catapult, which you can confidently walk up and use yourself as a frontliner, I wouldn't use this thing as a frontliner. 7.5 tons of armor is not the most tough. I mean, you're not going to die instantly, sure, but to the same degree, for dishing out so much firepower, you're not going to be brawling in the front with the big boys. At the end of the day, it is a very good mech for what it does. It is fantastic for supporting medium lances from a distance, and then of course, once you're out of that ammunition, following up with them, catching up quickly with that 86 miles per hour, and providing that laser support from kind of the second line or the back line. I definitely wouldn't recommend this as someone's personal mech or a mech to bring into the arenas unless you heavily modify it. I mean, did you hear about some of those variants with like chain whips and enhanced Myanmar and stuff? That sounds like an arena mech right there. But at the end of the day, the Trebuchet is a fantastic support mech, and I'm actually very glad that it exists for the niche that it fills, the fire support mech of the 50-ton weight bracket. Yet you could argue that one of the Hunchback variants, the one with twin Lerm 10s, fills a similar role, but to the same degree. I mean, twin Lerm 15s on a 50-ton platform is just an absolute blast, no matter how you slice it. I mean, shoot, heavy mechs are bringing that kind of firepower to bear, and yet this thing manages to do it and stay comfortably in the medium bracket. That's neat, that's cool. But because it's bringing that much firepower and support on a smaller package, it had to make sacrifices. And those sacrifices were, of course, its low ammunition and its bad heat management. So I would say that this is a great mech to take if you know exactly what you're doing with it. This is for the strategist. This is a mech that you want to bring if you know where you're going to deploy it and you have a good idea of the number of enemy forces you'll be fighting. Good for defense missions or dedicated missions where you know you're going to be able to set up a hold and stay in the back line. Garrisons, that kind of stuff. Or maybe even certain arena situations where you have a full lance and you want to back them up from the rear guard. It's a great mech for that. But if you're trying to go out on your own or step ahead or do scouting or even enter into a battlefield contract where you don't know how many opponents you're going to be facing, I'd give this mech a pass. It has its place, and I feel that being so specialized, it feels like something that was designed with a purpose, and I like that. I encourage that. I actually genuinely enjoy this mech. When I said that I was mixed on this thing, I might have given the impression that I'm not going to recommend it. I do, but you should only take it out if you know exactly what you're going to do with it, if that makes any sense, right? So, all in all, it is fantastic for support, but just be very careful how you use it and when you deploy it. It's perfect for the strategist and not so great for the maverick. Anyway, that concludes my reading and rant for today, and thank you for listening to my voice.